Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like you to join me in a moment's silence. All right, thank you. Let me stop my sharing. My sharing doesn't want to stop.
It was never started, Bill.
You all told me you saw the everything.
Nope.
Well, if it didn't start, I don't have to stop it. That's the good news there. Well, look, welcome everyone. We have a couple of guests who have joined us. David Kelly, David, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hey, David, welcome again. This is your third visit, and there's a certain significance in our club for a visitor who comes 3 times. We feel that that person wants to be a Rotarian. So, David, are you going to become a Rotarian?
Possibly.
Okay, well, look, keep coming, but it gets harder to say no each time. We start turning the screw on the thumb screw. But we're happy to see you. I hope your family's well and welcome. We also, although we can't see him, Bobby Masters is a visitor for the 2nd time. Many of you will remember about 3 months ago, Bobby was a guest speaker. Bobby is a vice president with Preserve Communities, which is the owner of Bay Creek here. And Bobby lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, but he spends most of his life here these days looking out and caring for Bay Creek. And Bobby, welcome. And I'm happy to announce that the board of directors just an hour ago approved Bobby's application to become a Rotarian. So Bobby, welcome to Rotary, almost.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to getting involved and appreciate everything you guys do.
Well, thank you, Bobby. The way it works is you have just been presented to the membership. We have about 38 members. Nobody shows up every week, but they have a week to say, I don't like that guy, Bobby Masters, or say, welcome, Bobby. And guess what? Nobody ever says they don't like anybody. Rotarians love everyone. We have no black marbles. So a week from now, you will be a Rotarian. And shortly afterwards, hopefully we get together and have a nice ceremony where we present you with a pin and all of that. But welcome and feel free to participate in our meeting today. We're going to have a good meeting. We have a few announcements before we get on with our program. And our program today is a dog and pony show. Meddy and Tom are going to talk about the book that Meddy's written about Tom. And I can't wait to get to that portion of our program. Robert Church is coming on. So Robert, welcome. I'm excited I'm starting right at the top with the important stuff. We have our slate of officers for the fiscal year 2021-22. The nominating committee presented it to the board today, and I'll share it with the membership now. Beginning next year, not beginning, but actually right now, our president-elect is Chuck Huber. Congratulations, Chuck.
Thank you.
And our president nominee is Reggie Wiggins. Reggie, where are you? Reggie is our president nominee. I'm happy to step down as your immediate past president. Bill Murphy has agreed to be vice president for another year. Randy Diamond will be our secretary for another year. Paul Strong will be our treasurer for another year. I spoke for you, Robert, because I knew you would be our sergeant at arms for another year. You do agree to that, don't you? Yes? Okay. And David Kabler will be our director at large. So what we have now is a succession in place for leadership for at least the next 2 years. And we are always looking for that next leader, the so-called president nominee designate. That's kind of the third in line. So if anybody's interested, just say you are and you'll probably get the job.
Hey, Paul, before I forget it, make sure you note on the screen that there are 2 members, and Eddie's
Right,
picture there
right.
for the count of members attending.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're going to be a great president, Chuck. I can see right now. In fact, I think you'll rise to the level of Paul Strong in your presidency, which is
Sounds like it.
super. Now, we've got 6 months between now and the end of our fiscal year. So we kind of thought ahead and said, look, what we'll do, we're not going to wait for July, but since Chuck is now our president-elect, no longer our director at large, we elected, mute yourself if you can. We're getting a little feedback there. So what we did was we elected Reggie as our director at large. So Reggie is now a full-fledged member of the board and will help us, as he has so far, set the direction for this club. So welcome to the board, Reggie.
Muted, Reggie. Muted. I was muted. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's very important. A lot of folks were concerned that we wouldn't get our act together in terms of our slate, but I've never questioned our ability to do that. We're just a good bunch of Rotarians who get the job done. Maybe not along the time that Paul sets for us to get it done, but we get it done. Better late than never. I wanted, yes.
Just to add one thing to that, that's effective immediately, but in July, when the new fiscal year starts, you will roll off as president, become immediate past. Chuck will roll into president, Reggie will roll into president-elect, I think. And at that time, that board position will be open again. And that's when David will step onto the board as member at large. Is that right, Bob?
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a double shift that goes on in there. It fills the needs immediately. And then with the new officers, when they come in July, everybody sort of moves up the line one.
It's kind of like Notre Dame's backfield in action. It moves so
Yeah.
fast, before you know it, it's a touchdown. So thank you for that, Bill. I want to
Bill,
give, yes.
I might point out that it's Robert Church's phone that seems to be making some noise.
Yeah, it's it's Robert.
You could probably mute him.
Yeah, I meant to do that because there we go, Robert. But We need you, Robert, but we don't need your noise. All right, so that's fixed. I got a text yesterday from Al Pascal. Al and Lori are coming along. You know, they have COVID, but they're still coughing, and they still feel a little weak and tired, but a little fever once in a while. But what Al reports is they can't kick the cough, so they're doing okay otherwise. So keep Al and Lori in your prayers, but they're coming along. Real quick, I'm trying to, Mehdi, where'd you go? I'm trying to move fast so you have a lot of time here. So be thinking about service projects. Hey, Robert, I'm gonna put you back on so you can tell us how you're coming along with your fire hydrant painting. Hold on, let me unmute you. Where did Robert go? Oh, there he is. Robert, unmute yourself.
He
Okay.
might not be able to on his phone. I don't know.
Okay, now he's on now. How's the Eastville fire hydrant project coming?
We're moving very slow. Cause I even contacted Cape Charles Fire Hydrant and fire department, and they're gonna get back to me also. They think it's a good idea also, but we just haven't moved along as fast as I would like. But I just have to contact them again.
Yeah, don't give up on that. Things, you know, things really don't move as fast as we'd like them to do, especially when we have a good idea. But don't give up on that. And, you know, we might be doing Cape Charles before Eastville. And again, I thank you for coming up with that idea, Bob. I'm going to put you back on mute.
Okay.
Okay, get your flu shot if you haven't had it. We've got a couple of opportunities now. Now that Chuck is president-elect, we're going to need someone to take over the newsletter. So if that's something you think you'd like to do, it's a lot of fun. And it's not really that hard to do. Paul does a lot of the work in front for you. He will deliver you a framework, and all you have to do is flesh it out, correct Paul's spelling, and a couple of things that he always gets wrong, and we'll have a newsletter. So looking for someone to take over the newsletter. Remember to call your buddies. And as Randy does, invite a friend. Invite your friends and neighbors and give them an opportunity to see what Rotary is all about. And they might like what we do and join up with us. We are one short of 40 members. I don't think we've ever had 40 members since I've been around. Never, okay, Paul says, yeah. So when David joins, we're going to have 40 members, which, boy, we're gonna have a big party then. And the reason we want membership is we're all very busy. And the more members we have, it's the less we have to do as individuals. Think of it that way. Yeah. So what if we had 50 members? Look, we would be through with crab cakes by 11 o'clock in the morning. We'd have to get a bigger firehouse to make the fire cake. Yeah. So think that way. Hey, Mark, welcome. How did you get in? Did I let you in, Mark? Mark snuck in the back door.
Yeah, he's been on for the last 5 minutes or so.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to try again, my friends, to share screen. This time I might get it right. It does not look like a good day.
I do have an announcement.
You make your announcement while I'm trying to get my act together here.
Some of you are still delinquent on paying your dues and your Rotary Foundation contribution for this last quarter. And I will send in from the club to the Rotary Foundation the total of everybody's gifts, along with an outline of who paid what to the Rotary Foundation, and then they will send an acknowledgement before, after the end of the year, after they get our money, to each of you for your contribution, which will make it tax deductible. So if you want that contribution counted this year, you need to get it mailed to me by Christmas, I'd say, because that only gives me a week to get the final thing together and to send it into the Rotary Foundation.
Thank you, Paul. Well, look, I cannot get my share screen to pick up our Happy Dollars graphic, but that doesn't deter us. We are going to have Happy Dollars anyway. And if Diane doesn't show up at one of these meetings, we're in trouble, guys. All right, who's got a Happy Dollar?
I got 5 Happy Dollars, Bill.
Okay.
I got 5 Happy Dollars in celebration of the fact that we finally have our new board and our succession plan in place. And also, I want to thank everybody who volunteered to step up and take office next year. So we're all very happy about that.
Thank you. I've got 10 Happy Dollars, and I tell you, nobody's happier than me for David, Reggie, and Chuck stepping up to assume leadership roles in our organization. They are outstanding people. We recognized that early on. It took a while for them to recognize that they were outstanding people, but they're on board, and I'm tickled pink. You notice I kind of have a pink shirt on today. So $10 for you guys, and we wish you the best of luck. And you have the support of the membership.
Hey, Reggie and Dave, how sore is your wrist from all that twisting?
Okay, I have mine wrapped, Chuck. I'm
I
sure
have
you're.
5 Happy Dollars.
How much?
I have 5 Happy Dollars for Nancy's visit. $1 for Nancy visiting and returning to Brussels safely. She arrived there last night, and everything was smooth in her travel, and she'll be back here again next year. And the rest of the $4 is for the launching of the book, and we have been featured in Only Book Bin last Saturday at the open house, and also at the WESR radio show. We were featured yesterday on their news hour. So I think the book is getting known in the area, and hoping to launch it actively face-to-face next year after COVID is controlled. So I have 4 Happy Dollars for that.
You guys are rock stars.
I have 10 Happy Dollars, 5 for the book scenario, and 5 for the new slate of officers who are going to help with the club responsibilities.
Thank you. Are there any others? Well, look, I'm going to, Robert has a Happy Dollar. Let me get him off. Okay, Robert, unmute yourself.
I have 5 Happy Dollars for Mitty writing of the book and listening to her on the radio station last night. 5 Happy Dollars, Mitty. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Don't be offended, but you're going back on mute.
Okay.
Maybe he'll get on his computer next time. I'm going to have to circle back because I forgot one thing. The holiday party is in first meeting in January. And Reggie and Randy said they would share a little bit about it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit next week. But we want everybody prepared to enjoy the holiday party. So Randy, Reggie, you guys, you have it.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, we're excited about this upcoming holiday party. We had one last year at the tavern over on the golf course, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. So this one is January 5th. Randy is going to be the key component there for facilitating a part of the program that I think everybody really enjoy. So if I could pass it on to Randy so he can share that information, and we'll be giving more detailed information as we get closer to the event.
Okay, we are going to go ahead with this gift exchange, which will be a challenge doing it on Zoom. So everyone who attends the January 5th meeting who wants to participate should come to that meeting with a wrapped gift. Let's just assume the value is 15 to 20 bucks. One suggestion made to me, which would be an easy way to do it, would be to get gift certificates to the local merchants in Cape Charles. They need all the help they can get. We might wind up with 20 of the same gift certificate, but I guess we can work around that. But that's one option. And then we will work through the gift exchange during the meeting. I expect, depending on how many people want to participate, it will take us 45 minutes to an hour to go through it. It's a little complicated, but it's probably best to just explain what we're going to do when we do it. And I'll be able to keep track of what happens to those gifts as they get exchanged. So it'll be a challenge, but it should be a lot of fun. I guess what we will require is and we'll have to do this with a general email to everybody, not just those in attendance today, get a listing of the people that do plan to attend the meeting and participate in the gift exchange. And we'll be able to go from there. At the end, you're going to have to trust me to figure out how we're going to distribute the gifts to their actual recipients at the end of the exchange. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Randy. I think that's going to be fun. So call your buddies. If, everybody hasn't been making every meeting, but this is one meeting you don't want to miss. So we'll be picking up the phone and making sure we have a big turnout on January 5th. Now, the reason you all came today was to hear from our rock star. Yeah.
What time will that meeting be? At usual time?
We never really decided. We might as well have it the same time. Change the time, you're going to throw people off. I would think.
Last year's meeting was 6 to 8, so we can decide if we want to have it at a regular time or a different time.
Well, let's decide by next week so we get
Okay.
the word out.
Bill, I have one more thing to bring up real quick. Everybody, not sure if you saw the news this morning, there was a 97-year-old, year young, I should say, patient in a nursing home in the United Kingdom who received the first public dosage of the Pfizer vaccine. She seemed to be a very nice lady. She was up sitting in a chair, completely coherent, so she seemed pretty healthy. She's the first one who's gotten a dose. So you might want to follow along at how she's doing. She'll have to take her second dose sometime early in January. So you may want to catch that story and just watch how she's doing.
Thank you, Chuck. Mehdi, Tom, are you ready? So everybody put
Yeah, we're
themselves on
ready.
mute except Tom and Mehdi.
Can you hear me?
Hear you very
Yeah.
good.
Okay, so do you want us to start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, we'd like to talk about the book that I've recently published, and this is the book. If you have not seen it, can you see it on the can you see the book?
Yep.
Yeah. And the book is available now at bookshops, the local bookshop, the Peach Street Bookshop on Mason, and at the Book Bin in only. So anyway, the writing Tom's memoir was not in my radar at all. In fact, I was 4/5 into the historical fiction I had been working on in the past few years, which is my first effort at writing fiction and novel about a young woman navigating the events in the history of the Philippines from the Philippine Revolution until the American occupation. And prior to this, I had published 2 books, both memoirs, one of my travel and one for my granddaughter. And when with writing the novel, the genre is so different from writing in a memoir, and I was stuck. And so when I met Tom at the Palace Theater event on May 11, 2019, this was the event during the 100-year celebration of the library at Cape Charles. And he was one of the speakers, and he expressed a wish to write about his memories before old age encroach on him and his memories start to fade. After all, he just celebrated his 82nd birthday on March 2nd of that year. So I was energized and found focus in a new project, and I was able to move away from my novel without feeling guilty about setting aside it temporarily. So my motivation, in addition to being sincerely fascinated about writing Tom's story, included some selfish reason to absolve me of guilt from not working on my novel and hoping to find inspiration in its completion once I completed Tom's memoir. And writing Tom's memoir indeed was inspiring and informative for me about the history of race relations in the US and how it dawned on me that there is some similarity in the history of colonial mentality among my own origins and how the experience had shaped individual identity and national identity. But the most important insight I gained is that change in attitude will occur only with individual understanding of how it shaped one's own attitudes and how it is reflected in systemic policies, and how these public policies can be changed only by individuals taking scrutiny of its origins in the legacy of slavery and colonialism. After that serendipitous meeting at the Palace Theater during the presentation of the library's centennial celebration, I was introduced to the Rosenwald School history through the fundraising information in the lobby at the time. And I've never heard of these Rosenwald schools, but these are the schools in the South that had been built throughout the South in order to provide education to the Black community, as the practice of Jim Crow was quite strong in the South, and schools serving the Black children are famously underfunded, and the resources are very limited. And so I learned that Tom was also a graduate of the Rosenwald School, which is the elementary school over the hump that is fondly called by locals here. And I have passed this building many times and noted its architecture. And now every time I pass through it, I have thought about how it would be like to be a student there during the era of segregation. And so one day I lived just across the Cape Charles Museum. And one day I walked over, and lo and behold, there was an exhibit of the interviews the students of the Rosenwald School, because there is a restoration project that is underway. And again, Tom was featured in this interview. And so when Tom again was invited to the Rotary Club and became a speaker in one of our meetings, and then at another social, I met him and his wife at the dinner. And so I sat with them at dinner, and after the conversation that we had, I felt like I had gained a friend. And so I broached the idea of writing his memoir for him, since he has been attempting to write it for several years, but really just could not begin the project. And that's how our collaboration started. And so during the pandemic, it presented an extra challenge because communication. Can you hear me? There was some interference. Okay, anyway. So during the pandemic, it was difficult for us to communicate because we could not communicate directly. And the challenge of communicating through the internet was again need to be surmounted. But writing the book is a journey for me in the history of being Black in America, and getting awareness of my experience being an ethnic immigrant of color in the US. And melding this experience together have been the inadvertent thrust that the book took for me while detailing Tom's personal story. So I think Tom will talk about his own experience about the contents of the book.
Okay. First, I would like to thank all of you, and especially the Rotary Club, for allowing me to speak to you about the book. I want to use this opportunity to thank Medi for being the writer and for taking my words and stories and writing a book that is factual and a pleasure to read. Many people have inspired me to write this book over the years, and I'm glad that Medi offered to do the writing and that she was the backbone in making it happen. I could not have done it without the support of everyone who was involved. There were others, too numerous for me to name. But the question is, so why write a book? Why tell my story? I wanted to do this book with Medi because I wanted people to know what it was really like to grow up as a Black male in Cape Charles. I wanted to have a people experience through the stories that was challenging and many times difficult about the life. If you get the book, you might find this on page 9. But mostly I wanted to understand that all of it really can't be conveyed in a book. You can't walk in my shoes. But it is my hope that what you get from this book will give you a perspective on what you see or experience today, and how what you're seeing around you today is driven by what happened yesterday during the time that I was growing up. When I was growing up, the underlying driving force was survival. Financial survival, physical survival. It was all about survival. There were advantages that white people had that Black people did not have. It made a huge difference in people's lives and what they could achieve. I'll give you an example. In Cape Charles, Black people had to pay for everything cash. The white customers were allowed to do what they call settle up once a year after the crops came in. They paid with money. The Blacks did not have that opportunity. Everything from the repairs you made to your house, to the gas you put in your car, the clothes you were wearing, or things you might need in your home, or even food, it all had to be paid in cash by Black people. We were not allowed to settle up when the crops came in. Imagine the difference this makes in your lifestyle to which you are able to accomplish what you can do for your children and your finances. I want to paint a picture for you by telling you that my thoughts begin on Mason Avenue. We call it Front Street. Imagine this. At the dock, the ferries were coming in. At the train station, trains coming in. There was a lot of activity. Passengers from both of these are merged together. People coming and people leaving. There were lots of cars in the parking lot waiting for passengers who were coming or going. This was a chance to make money. I washed windshield. I gave a spiel about Cape Charles. I ran errands because the drivers couldn't leave their cars while they're in the parking lot. It was a good opportunity for me. But while I was doing this, I saw Black women on their knees washing out the insides of the passenger cars, and also with their long brushes washing the outs and the exterior. I knew that they had the same kind of jobs on the ferry, on their knees, cleaning up the restrooms or washing the floors. It is not a job that's paid much money, but it was a job they had. To survive, you had to have multiple skills so you could do multiple jobs. And you had to be willing to do what was asked of you to keep the job. To survive, you had to make multiple skills, so you do multiple jobs, and you have to be willing to do what you were asked to keep that job. And people were not, Blacks were not robots. And they didn't necessarily like the job, but it seemed that way because they did what we were told. I was very observant. I would notice what people needed or what they didn't want to do for themselves, and I would offer that service. If I wasn't working, I'd get my shoe shine kit and go around asking people, could I shine their shoes? I would cut grass whenever I could. I also delivered papers, but I didn't just deliver them, I read them. Delivering papers gave me access to resources that others didn't have. It allowed me to be informed and to understand some things just from reading the newspaper. I want to leave with you the thought, even though you know intellectually that your life was different from mine, it was different in ways beyond what I could put in a book or try to describe in this short talk. This is not just for me, it's for every Black person in Cape Charles. I had just had the opportunity to write about it, and I hope that doing so give you a little insight of what things were like yesterday, how it influences things today. Thank you.
Part of the impetus for the book was the observation that the presence of the Black population is really not noted in the history of Cape Charles. That in fact, many in the walking tour of Cape Charles, the Black structures are not identified at all. Like the site of the oldest funeral home in the area, the Grace Funeral Home, which Tom now is the steward of the business. That was originally was established in 1895, and the original building is still around, but there is no historical marker or any identification of the structure, and it's not included in the walking tour of Cape Charles. And I think what I would like to do with the book too is to restore some of these historical landmarks in order to preserve the history of the Black community in Cape Charles.
I would like to add that Blacks were self-sustained in an undeveloped area in a developed community town. And the infrastructure was put in place after the people came rather than before. That's caused a certain amount of confusion. People were placed anywhere, but without the whites. Complete separation of race was the norm. And so He had rows of houses in different places. And many of the houses were poorly constructed, but there was a place for them to stay while they worked on the railroad and other jobs around the town.
And it seems to me that from learning about Tom's description of the black section, which encompasses the area around Washington Avenue, Jefferson Avenue, and Madison Avenue, bounded by Fig Street and Strawberry, right?
Yes,
That it was a very vibrant community, and that on weekends it was really hopping with people on the street celebrating, and it's almost like a party every weekend. And we don't have that in the area anymore, unfortunately. But it seems like the people at the time were more engaged in each other and had celebrated each other more directly and personally.
I think one thing that really has excited me and perplexed me, because when you live so long, that most people don't know what you know and don't know about the experiences you had. And you begin to ask them about, did you know about this? And did you know about that? And you find out they weren't here. They weren't even on Earth. So there were certain things that happened in the town that hardly anybody remembers. For an example, Thanksgiving and Christmas, they would throw turkeys out of the upstairs buildings over the hardware store. But that was for the, and that was about the time when Elwood Collins was there. But nobody seems to remember that. And then I had to find people who were around to see the streets and the ditches on the streets. And then also what it was impressing, it was this inherent fear that we had. We were always afraid. And we used to meet over my funeral home. People would be ducking and dodging and running in it. And we would sit there and exchange pleasantries and also engage in meaningful conversations to see what could be done and what kind of pressure could we bring to bear against the system, who didn't think we needed adequate street lights, water and sewage. Those things were not on Washington Avenue, and very sparsely in the, I guess, on Jefferson Avenue. And of course, the next question I haven't found out, maybe somebody help me, the divisions that we had and who started it between Sweet Kingdom and Jersey. That was a division. It started in the middle of, I think it was where the park is, I can't remember.
Peach Street.
Peach Street,
Yeah.
yes, right in the middle of Peach Street is the dividing line between Sweet Kingdom and Jersey. Jersey, a place that I was forbidden to go. But you'll read all about this in the book, and should you get it.
Yeah,
right.
and I don't think many people know about this designation of certain aspect of the city, like the Sweet Kingdom and the Jersey. The Jersey section is like more the working and the business section of the town, of the Black community, where a lot of establishments are located and where a lot of people visit these establishments on weekend, and it becomes a very live aspect of the community. But again, some unsavory elements might be associated because there's a lot of speakeasies. And so that was the reputation that was earned by this community. So it did not have a very positive reputation compared to the Sweet Kingdom section, which was the more affluent section, bordering the white streets like Tazewell and Randolph.
Yes, and one other thing, I was proud, I'm still proud of I think it was 47 Black businesses in the community, in that general area. And they had wonderful skills and they could do most anything. And some of that art is lost, like the caning of chairs. I hated to see that go, but no one else wanted to take it. We had people who repaired shoes, and the list goes on and on. I don't know if I'll ever see any of those skills displayed around the town or anywhere, for that matter.
And I think these are all detailed in the book under chapter 3, I believe. And also the origin of the town of Cape Charles is detailed in the book together with Tom's story of growing up in the area. And so I urge you to read the book because it really is very informative about the story of Cape Charles.
Well, Medi, Tom, thank you for
Has
giving
anyone
us.
read the book yet?
Jackie has, I know. Bill has, Reggie has, Stanley has. So a number of us have read the book already, but thanks again, Medi, Tom, for giving us a peek into your book, and the rest of us will have to get around to it. We have a few minutes left, and if anyone has a question for Tom or Medi, take yourself off mute and ask your question.
This is Bobby. Where are the books available? On Amazon or in a
The
local
book
store?
is available for sale locally at the Peach Street bookstore.
Okay,
And
good.
that's only, and also available at Amazon.
Very good. Thank you.
And you can catch me on the street. I saw one on the way in the house the other day. So if you catch me, I have a few.
Yeah. I also have copies of the book. You can ask me if you like to
Okay,
have
thank you.
it from me. Yeah.
I don't have a question for you guys, but thank you so much, Tom and Medi, for doing that book. I know there's like 10 years difference between Thomas's age and my age. However, I certainly lived many of the experiences that were outlined in that book. So it was really something that touched me when I read it, and really appreciate your efforts in putting it together.
I thank you for that, Reggie. And how is it living in the middle of that field, the dairy farm?
Well, it was a dairy farm back then. Yes, absolutely.
It was a dairy farm.
Now it's great just to look out and enjoy the bay and the oyster people and all those things. But it's different, I haven't realized what was there before, what is now there, Thomas. Great point.
Chuck, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a comment. One day, I don't know if Tom remembers, he and I stayed after the meeting over at the coffee house, and we probably talked for about 45 minutes to an hour, just kind of reminiscing our childhoods. And Tom brought up a lot of what he brought up today to me, living in Cape Charles. I was a city boy, so I grew up in Baltimore City. And I can remember as a kid, we lived in a very rough neighborhood, kind of lower class. And Tom telling me about his childhood, how different they were, but at the same time, life was a challenge as a kid back then, whether you were in the big city or in a small town. And I do remember, even in Baltimore City, the days of Jim Crow. I remember them vividly, and just how unfair they were. And I would question my parents. I didn't understand what was going on. For example, riding the city streetcars and the city buses and Black people having to ride in the back. And I vividly remember asking my mother, why that was so, and I never really understood it. And it was very clear to me. I never saw the first Black kid in my class until 7th grade, which was 1963, the year of the signing of legislation for civil rights. So in retrospect, looking back, I didn't realize the time I was living in what was going on so much as I did some years later. But there were a lot of parallels with being kind of beaten up, roughed up at times, growing up as a kid, living in the city. And I know Bill Murphy and I have had talks about it. We've had a lot of parallels in our life as kids. Bill growing up much like I did, more in the big city realm of it. So life was a real challenge as a kid, whether you were in small town America or in the big cities of America. I wouldn't change anything about it, but it was a learning experience. Got a little rough at times. But Tom, I really appreciate you working with Mehdi to put this in writing. And I'm going to get online or else go over in town and buy that book.
Any other questions? I think, Jackie, you have a question?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Newport News, Virginia, and had no idea of how Blacks lived on the Eastern Shore. Did not even know that it existed, which is a reflection of how little information we were exposed to. When Virginia decided to close their schools rather than integrate, I had no idea that it was going on because it was not in the papers. We went to school, but it was Idlewild County and in Norfolk and Virginia Beach where they closed the schools. And it was a very different world. I had no idea of the kind of experience that Blacks were having on the Eastern Shore. Newport News was a bit more open. There were areas where you knew you could go, and there were areas where you knew you were not supposed to go. So we lived in little ghettos. We had no idea because our parents didn't talk about it. So no one my age was aware of what was happening. And it wasn't in the papers, and the school books had no history of things that Blacks had contributed to the world, really. But it was an eye opener, Tom and Mehdi. I really enjoyed it.
David, you have a comment.
Thank you very much. Golly, I moved here 30 years ago, and in 1990, Cape Charles, you could clearly see a division among the races in town. You could see evidence of it that you don't see today. And it occurs to me that as a public project for our Rotary Club, wouldn't it be great for us to shed some light on this disappearing history? Honestly, it's not something to be proud of, but the fact is our community could gain so much by recognizing what's occurred here, and what Tom's related, I think should be recognized. And I'm not sure how to do it, but this just strikes me right now as something that is disappearing from our town. The evidence of this is, with the gentrification of the community and the redevelopment going on, of course, which I'm part of. But boy, I'd sure like to see a memorial to this in some way that would keep this before the public, so that people, they're knowledgeable about it and they're aware of it, and it can prevent, further, racism. And because golly day, if from what I'm hearing, Cape Charles was a seriously racist community to live in for half of its history, at least. And for us to forget that, or to ignore it, or to bury it, I think this would be a project that you talk about public projects for our club. Well, here's one for us to think about and to work and to consider. So just thought I'd put that out there. And thank you, Tom, so much
You're welcome.
for enlightening us about this, because I know I was aware of it when I moved here in 1990. It struck me. You could see it in the physical nature of the town.
Yeah.
So I'm very appreciative that you've written. I want to go and get a copy of your book. I'm going to get 5 copies, get you to sign it. I want your autograph, and so I'm very proud of you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, David. Look, we're running a little bit late, but I appreciate all your comments, and we really do appreciate, once again, Mehdi and Tom. So we'll wrap up, and I think I've got this thing down, people, but let's see how it works. Hang on. Maybe I don't. So I'm just going to ask you, what did we think, say, and do with regard to our life? 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I'll see you next week. We'll be talking about diabetes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.